Hello, everyone. Bom dia, boa tarde ou boa noite, wherever you are listening to us. It is Dia Mundial da Língua Portuguesa, World Portuguese Language Day, although our presentation and our conversation will be mostly in English. Welcome to this event, very special event of the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute, that is PBBI from California State University, Fresno, along with our partner that we are very proud to do lots of work with, and it is the Portuguese American Leadership Council of the United States, PALCUS, our only national organization in the United States promoting everything that is Portuguese, including being one of the most, if not the most important voice in the transatlantic relations. Because if there are transatlantic relations between Portugal and the United States, it is indeed because of the nearly 1.5 million Portuguese that are in the United States. This is, of course, National Children's Book Week in the US. I should say it's one of 2 weeks. It's this week and again in November, and we hope to come back in November and do a few other things as well. Our theme is new voyages of discovery, because the discoveries did not end with what the Portuguese did 500 years ago. The Portuguese American diaspora is discovering new roads for Portugal on a daily basis, and the subtitle, Teaching Tradition and Culture Through Children's Literature. I want to welcome the guests, and that is Angela Simões, Zachery Ramos, Terry Costa, and Andrea Nunes Emmett, and wanted to, of course, thank them for taking the time to be with us this morning in this World Portuguese Language Day. A great way to teach language and to teach culture to in the young Portuguese American communities, many of them of second, third, fourth, and even fifth generations. It is, of course, through when they're young. We cannot wait until high school, as I taught for many years, and now even in college, to teach them the ABCs. If we can do that when they are children, if we can do that when they are 3, 4, and 5 years old, we have an upper hand, and certainly cultural concepts. So again, thanks to all of you for joining us. We're going to start by asking each and every one of you to give us a brief bio, if you will, please, of about 3 to 4 minutes, a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your connection to the Portuguese world. I should say that Angela, Zach, and Andrea all three live in the United States of America. Andrea in the East Coast, and Angela and Zach here in the West Coast, and all the way from the beautiful island of Pico, my favorite island in the Azores. And I'm not saying that because he's here. It is really my favorite. My friends from Terceira kill me every time I say this, but it is, to me, Pico and Flores are two of the most beautiful islands in the Azores for two different reasons. And so after living a long time in Canada, lives in Pico Island. So we do have a presence from Portugal, and that's great. So tell us a little bit about yourselves, your connections to the Portuguese world, and then we'll dive into children's literature. And we'll start with Andrea.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. Thank you for having me this morning. I'm Andrea. I am on the East Coast. I'm actually in New Jersey, born and raised. Both my parents were born in Portugal. My dad was actually raised in Portugal and then immigrated over in adulthood. So my parents are from the Serra da Estrela region, specifically Vila Soeiro do Chão, which is the villa in the titles of one of my children's books. And growing up in New Jersey, luckily, I had a large Portuguese community around. So in Newark, there was a huge population there. In Elizabeth, where I grew up as well. So it was always around. I felt like I really grew up in the culture and we spoke it. And that's really how I picked it up as my first language, because that's what I was being spoken to all day. And growing up, I really made sure to stay close to the community that was local to me. So whether it be through nonprofits or the parades and Portugal Day itself. So that really kept me rooted and close. As I started working, as I actually physically left the community into other communities with maybe less of a presence, I noticed just the lack of the presence. And I would get excited when I would see a Portuguese flag or when I would see anything in Portuguese. I would get really excited. Even on vacation, sometimes I would get excited to see it. So the need really started coming back. And when I became a mom, it was just blaring, the need for anything Portuguese to help teach my daughter. And I think what I saw was children learn through literature and through what they're watching and seeing. And unfortunately, in my household, Portuguese is not the primary language spoken, like I grew up with. And so that's where I really felt a need to get closer again to the community, the language, and the culture to make sure that my daughter would grow up knowing it. So that's really how I like to stay involved. And again, still in New Jersey, there's still a huge population, but I always get excited when I see our culture represented in any way.
Indeed, thank you. And your experience, just briefly, is that with the Portuguese language, is that which is very specific to the East Coast, and not all of the East Coast, but certainly the tri-state of New Jersey and New York and Connecticut. The Portuguese have this strong relationship with mainland Portugal more than with the archipelagos, and kind of a tradition to go back almost every year if they can. So you had that experience growing up when you were involved, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is a wonderful memory and guidance for children's literature that we'll talk about. So thank you, Andrea. And we'll come to the West Coast, and Zachery, a little bit about yourself and your involvement and your involvement in the Portuguese American community as well.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for letting me be part of this. This is very exciting. I'm very happy to be here with all of you. For me, my start was my father's from St. George in Portugal, and he came here at a young age with his siblings and my grandfather and grandmother, and came here. And luckily, thanks to his hard work and dedication, I've been able to do the things that I've been able to do. My love for youth literacy and for children's books came from when I would read with my father, and it just grew into me wanting to transform and create something that me as a Portuguese American could see myself in. And that's when I created the book called Bullfights with Grandpa. And that's pretty much the story of how I just loved. My favorite things about the Vestas was the bullfights, because that was when me and my father would have great times. I'd always see him smiling, laughing. And from us first getting it out there, we've had a lot of great results from people in Gastin that had it and read it, saying how after they read it, they took their niece to the bullfights, that they could show them the pages in the books and show them define what things are going on. And it's just been great. And I can't say enough how incredible the Portuguese community we have here in California and all over, because it's just the more all of us that are a part of this panel continue to write and continue to share our traditions and culture, we're able to get more and more people involved and care more. So I can't thank PALCUS and FLAD enough for all the work that you guys do.
Thank you so much, Zach. And we'll go to the Azores, go to the island of Pico. Terry.
Hola, hello everyone. Even though I do not know Zach and Andrea, I'm glad to see the connections. I'm now living on Pico Island, the mountain island in the middle of the Azores. Your family is from Serra da Estrela, the other, peak of Portugal. And Zach, I'm next door to your heritage. São Jorge, or St. George, as you mentioned, island is right next door here. And I see it almost every day when I go to that side of the island. Well, I'm Terry Costa. I'm Canadian born. My parents in the 70s had that adventure of immigration and looking for something new, something different, something maybe better. I don't know. I guess it wasn't better, because a couple of years later, after I was born, they decided to come back to the Azores, to Pico Island. And that's where I learned my Portuguese from my childhood. But then after grade 8, I went to my country of birth, to Canada. And that's where all my studies are from, and including University of Toronto. And I'm the artistic director of Miratech Arts, an arts organization here in the Azores that I started in my time in Vancouver in the Pacific. And that's where I went to visit California and met the lovely Angela Costa. And our last time together, I think it was during the Portuguese in California tour, the presentations of Nelson Pontagarça's films work. So I haven't been there for a few years, and I need to come back and show all this great work we're doing here in the Azores for the world. But I come from direction theater work, and only in the last few years I started working on children's books, or books for the child in all of us, really.
Indeed, books for the child and all of us, and I like that line. And a big congrats to Mediateca Arts and to the work that Terry does in the Azores. It was much needed. He came in, revolutionized a lot of stuff. He bothered a lot of people, and that usually is good when you bother a lot of people, because it means you're doing something. And he indeed has built quite an operation that promotes culture and that promotes the Azores within, beyond the Portuguese world, and also in the diaspora and everywhere else throughout the world. Thank you, Terry, for your hard work. And we're going to come back to the West Coast, to California, and to Angela Costa Simões, who we've all known for a while. And then when we say for a while, as Terry mentioned, it's because we all met when we were very, very young. They were like 2 and I was like 12. So, that's basically it. Anyway, Angela, of course, is a immediate past president of PALCUS. She is one of the reasons why we do these events, PBBI and PALCUS. And of course, she'll tell you a little bit about herself, which she's going to do a synopsis of it, because it would take probably about an hour and 28.
Yeah. Well, when we say we met when we were very young, yes, we were probably all on a float together in the parades, because kind of like you, Andrea, I grew up in the Portuguese community here in California. It's everything I've known my entire life. I've never not been involved in the Portuguese community, but I'm third generation. So we didn't speak a lot of Portuguese at home. Knew a few words. We knew how to say malasadas or filhos and things like that, but really did not speak the language, though, like I said, we were involved in many aspects. So fast forward to, we had our daughter, and we wanted her to learn Portuguese. And so my husband brought books from Portugal that were all in Portuguese. But not being a native speaker, or not being a fluent speaker, I actually couldn't understand a lot of the words that were in children's books, which I thought, oh my gosh, I can't even understand a children's book that's in Portuguese. And I thought, it would be great if it was in both English and Portuguese, because then I could learn while I'm reading to my daughter, right? And so that just, the light bulb kind of went off, and I said, well, then I'll write a book. And the first book was Linda Menina, a Pretty Girl. So it was inspired by our daughter, and literally inspired by our interactions every day. Bom dia, minha linda, how are you? You're so pretty, that kind of thing. And the intention was just for it to be the one book. And it kind of grew from there, because the response was so positive, and everyone said, well, Linda Menina, well, what about Linda Menino? Because I have a son, I don't have a daughter. So we did a Linda Menino, and then you start to see this need, as again, as Andrea was saying, that there really wasn't a lot of bilingual Portuguese English books out there. And so, we fill the void. And so then you start having ideas, and with vocabulary books, and talking about your own experience about the festa, which is one of the books that I published. And so that's just kind of how it started. And it's, now we have a long list of ideas, and I, might be publishing for the next 20 years, who knows, because the ideas are there. But it's been a great ride, a very unexpected ride. And I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Angela. And we'll go back to Andrew. We'll keep on following this same format here. So what led you, of course, you mentioned a little bit, was your daughter, and you mentioned a little bit children's books. How that inspired you, such as the story that Angela just shared with us. And so, Andrea, in writing a children's book, and yours is basically a little bit different. Explain to us. It's not bilingual in the sense of traditional. Every single word is in Portuguese and every single word is in English. And so you opted for a different format. So tell us a little bit about both books. We'll show them to everyone here in a bit and how they can get them. And tell us a little bit how you created them and the purpose for putting in the poems, putting in the verses, some Portuguese words, and of course the drawings are of those words. And so it's very well done. Congratulations. And tell me what led you to that process.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you. So with the poetry specifically, I've always written, I always loved writing. I was actually an English minor in college. Just because I took so many English classes, I might as well get the minor because I loved it. So with writing, my niche was really always poetry. So anything lyrical, anything I could get to rhyme. I felt that I learned better in a lyrical way. So even still today, when I need to memorize something, sometimes I have to create a song in my head to do it. So with the book, while it's not all words in one language or the other, I tried to do a verse, a rhyming verse on each page and have at least one Portuguese word in it. So really it is in poetry form, but the book is primarily in English. So anybody that's either learning as a child, right, they're learning language from the beginning, or somebody who, even an adult, right, has no idea of the Portuguese language, doesn't speak it, but because the verses are primarily in English with 1 to 3, I try to keep it at a max of 3 per verse, Portuguese words in there, it hopefully helps the person learn that one word. So really a one word at a time method. And a lot of times, if somebody was learning from scratch, they might even be able to guess the word because there's some context behind the verse being in English. And again, it all rhymes. So I think the one word at a time helps in a sense, but for anybody that learns better in that lyrical, rhythmic way, it would also help really memorize and learn the word that way. With the images themselves, so like Angela, I feel like becoming a mom really inspired it. So the main character is modeled after my daughter, and it really came from 2 things. One of them was the fear that all these great memories I had as a kid with my grandparents in Portugal and with my family members, she wouldn't get to experience the same way. And that was always a fear. The other one was that I wish I could live those memories forever, and I wanted them to live forever. So by creating these books, I felt like I kind of joined those 2 needs and wants really that I had deep down, and would have my daughter experience these things while keeping those memories alive, and hopefully also allowing others with similar memories to feel the same nostalgia. So with the characters, everything really is modeled after personal memories. So my grandparents, I've tried to go for both sets. So I tried to be fair. Stella in the villa, my grandparents are actually still there. And so it really is, the designs and the illustrations were modeled after them. With the illustrator, I worked with photos from the villa, right? And the igreja in the villa, I really wanted it to look just like it. So everything is based off of photos and actual pictures of the town. And then the other book, Stella in the Kitchen, was my other grandmother, who actually lived here right next door to me. So I always had access to her. And we did a lot of the baking together. So that's really where these 2 specifically came from, and really why I wanted to go through the poetry and just inserting one word at a time in it.
Indeed, that's a very creative way, and kudos to you for doing that. Very creative, and it's a way that in a book, students can learn 20, 25 words. And if they can do that and learn them in context, as a language teacher, I can tell you that's the way that language needs to be learned, even at a young age of 3, 4, or 5. So, and it is a way for the parents to learn some Portuguese, as Angela said as well. Angela.
So if I could just say, in looking at how you inserted the words, reminds me so much of how we grew up learning Portuguese words. And in fact, there were so many words that I didn't know the English word for. So for example, Xuxa, I once with friends, oh yeah, I had a Xuxa growing up. I'm like, what's a Xuxa? It's, the thing so it's kind of funny that my parents did insert the words into our English lexicon, and so I grew up knowing those words. So yeah, it's a great strategy.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, the one word, it's so funny because my daughter now, it is challenging because it's not the primary language. But even sometimes with my parents, my dad will say anda, and it's one word, but she gets it. So I'm like, okay, she knows some Portuguese. So we're getting there.
Sure. That is important. Zach, let's talk a little bit about bullfights with Vovo. It's really a wonderful book about a tradition that's very near to the Portuguese, and especially certain parts, central Portugal, and also a couple of the islands in the Azores. And so tell us a little bit how, as you mentioned in your intro, it came, of course, from your contact with your avô, your contact with your, of course, with your dad, going to the Portuguese traditions. What made you write about the bullfights? What memories did you have, and what techniques did you use?
So helped me out with writing was I have a niece named Jazzy, and she was about 3 years old at the time I was writing the book. And I had the idea because looking at her and how knowing that at her age, she's not going to be going to a bullfight anytime soon because you can't be too safe with where we go, always the mosquitoes and everything. So I had the idea of, after talking to my dad and was explaining about how I always loved going to as a kid, why not make something that I could give to my niece? That way, before she goes to her first one, she can learn about it. And it just blew up to where it became a family project. Me talking to my father, be talking to my aunts, my uncles, asking them about what their favorite memories were, what details should be included. And as it grew, it became a good family bonding project to where even I was remembering different parts of things I had forgotten. Like in one part of the book, you can see the little boy drinking samol, and all my cousins and I were just laughing and remembering how we didn't know what this drink was. We just knew that as a kid, we'd always tell our aunts and uncles, we want the green can drink with the purple flower on it. And it wasn't until we got older that we learned the name and what was in it. And it was just a nice bonding moment. And I think that after having my niece read it and having other little ones reading it, it's been a great experience for them to now, with them being of age to be able to go to the bullfights, they just point out different things in the words that were used in the book that even my cousin, who, as I mentioned, Jazzy, when she went, she was able to point out different things during the bullfights that she had learned from the book. So it's been a great learning experience, and it's been fun being able to incorporate something that was an event that always has meant a lot to me and my family. And I'm looking forward to hopefully being able to do more books like this. That way we can educate the younger generation on these events, as well as getting a family connection, a family bond on them. Because when you write it as just you writing it, it's one thing, but then having a family connection, having it be a group project, it felt great to be able to get that family bond and get everybody involved.
Indeed, yes, it can be a family project, and that's actually a good way to do it. And having someone in your family that you can write the book for, as Andrea was saying as well, and so is Angela. Terry, you're a man of arts, a man of the theater, and the book also, like the rest of them, is very well done. I have it right here, and I think you have it there. You can show it as well. It's a beautiful large book, and I like large children's books. I really like those big old pages and the drawing. So, but what drove you to this, first of all, and second of all, being a man of the theater and a man of arts, and I know that you've written before, and that's a question to ask all of you, as a matter of fact, when we go back, which is, how do you write for children? I've always had that. I mean, I was able to work on the translation with Angela, excuse me, of her book, João and Maria. And I was translating it, and I was actually looking for words in Portuguese that would be simple as well, because how do you write for children? I mean, I enjoy writing tremendously, but I don't know if I could do it for children. So tell us a little bit about Neda. Tell us a bit about, first of all, what is it? Because there are some people that probably have never heard of it. Some of us who drink alcohol at a elderly age, of course, over 21, know what it is as far as the liqueur, but it's more than that. It's a shot, it's a tea, and it's such an important, iconic plant for the Azores. So tell us a little bit, first of all, about it, what drove you to the book, and the language.
The book does exactly that, is tell you a little bit about Neda. And Zach, by the way, this is the page that is dedicated to São Jorge Island, the Dragon Island. Because Neda is a plant that is really well known here, especially in the Central Islands. Pico Island is full of it. It's a mint-like plant. And people here on my island do anything that you can extract some sugar of some sorts, they will make it into a liqueur, moonshine. And now we have this special Neda by Neda, which is a little bottle, like a souvenir style, that the adults can have the adult drink. But she's so cute that has become like a bestseller here on the island because it goes with the illustration of the book. And I decided to write this story, which was actually a 17-page story about finding Azores. That's how it started. And I'm like, oh no, I wouldn't want to read this. And I started cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting to the point that I was like, this would be perfect if it was an illustrated book. And it's called Neda in the Azores. Neda is the name of the character. She's based on the flower of the plant Neda, but of course, colloquialism or in tradition, whatever you want to call it, they called the plants and the moonshine Neda, even though it's written with a tilde. So in Portuguese, the circunflexo would be Neda. But even though your grandparents would say it Neda, I thought that was quite interesting. So I introduced the character Neda with the spelling, with the actual accent, the correct accent in the word Neda. And then inside we mention Neda, the plant, and that way has become an educational tool because it's basically a trip from island to island. The book and the idea of these books are travel books. And this one, she visits, she goes around the world on a plane, but then she visits many monuments, but she finds the Azores Islands. So then when you turn the page, each page is dedicated to an island. And my goal was to take a page of text and turn it into one sentence that would make sense, not necessarily simple in the words itself, but to make sense of that story, the one-page story, turn it into one sentence. Because my goal was that to then, through the illustration, to let the kid in all of us to travel to the island and discover certain things, be it in architecture, be it in some customs, be it why that island is known because of a fruit or because of a landscape, whatever it was. And that way, when each person that reads the book comes out completely different because they go through the illustrations and they create a much bigger story. Usually when I tell it to kids, and it's basically 20 sentences, but it usually takes about 20 minutes because the story just gets built during that session. And I fell in love with that. I didn't know I had that in me, but I love that aspect of connection to the children, because I've always worked with in theater, and yes, sometimes we did it for children, but in a completely different way. So now the second book I'm proud to announce, Neda in the Americas. So she's in the Azores. She now lives in Pico Island, and like Professor Denise mentioned, with that plant, we create many things, and yes, we do. And one page of the book is dedicated to that. That because Neda decided to live on this beautiful island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, now we have cookies, we have cake, we have tea, we have moonshine, and we have much more, because that's exactly what I'm creating with Neda. It's a world around her. So now we're working on school supplies, all illustrated, everything around her. We have a series of postcards, and we have even scented, products. Of course, we have the mini bottle for the adults. We're creating a whole world around her. And the second book, which will come out on her birthday, which is in December, and also at the same time as our Animapix Festival, which is a festival that goes from the illustration and the presentation of illustrated books all the way to the big screen for the animation films. And this past year, we had 1,200 kids and youth that came to the festival, which are almost all of them from the island, which was fantastic. I hope we can do it again in December. So the second book, which will come out in December, is Neda Goes to the Americas. And she does stop in California. She does not go to New Jersey, so sorry, Andrea, but she does go to pick some sweet potatoes with the
Yes, she would have to.
Just around, of course, the Golden Gate Bridge, we had that connection because she has many friends, and all her friends are all animals and plants. And one of the animals is the green sapo. What's sapo in English?
The frog, yes.
Frog, the green
Right.
frog.
Mhm.
That, of course, many of them are there in your land. And so she goes for a little jump around in the Golden Gate Bridge with the froggy. And that's why I'm creating the new, but she also goes to dance on the streets of Miami, which doesn't have, a direct Portuguese connection, but it has an arts connection. Oh, and she does visit Martha's Vineyards for all the hydrangeas, just like in the Azores. So there's all these connections, of her traveling through the Americas, through Canada, through the United States, going to Mexico, and all the way to, through Brazil and Uruguay, which of course connects back to coming to the Azores from, the large Portuguese community in Uruguay, and one of the most beautiful libraries in Montevideo, Alverso. So I've connected all of that into the second book, which I'm looking for. It's already being illustrated, and I'm looking forward to present it to all of you guys before Christmas time.
That's
But
right.
I feel
Come to America, okay? Bring.
that I made Neda as a Neda Ant, which is a publishing house. And because I started getting lots of people connecting, I would love to, publish this, and that. And the second book is all in Portuguese. Oh yeah, Neda in the Azores, Neda in the Açores, being, such a short text, I decided to do a bilingual, and that collection will continue bilingual. But we do have now new books that have been published, by different authors and different illustrators, and we're building that collection because I found it much needed here in the Azores. Because one, there were not many local stories or stories that you would connect locally, so the kids, could, see themselves somehow in these stories. So that's one of the main focus of the publishing that we're doing here. But also, of course, publishing what especially the young folks here want to do it. And the next one that comes out is literally a picture book with an intro about, the unknown, and it's all about aliens. Just because, a lot of the youth here, just like I did many years ago with the X-Files, I was, so much interested in that issue. But youth here are interested in that in a different perspective, of course. So we're doing that, and we will continue to publish. So maybe one day I will see your works too, and we can work together on that. But I'm so excited about this project, the point that I could talk forever, but I'll shut up now.
No, and of course you need to bring that to the Americas. We need to work on a project that you come over here and actually maybe even just got my wheels turning as well. Maybe even have a meeting, a physical meeting of Portuguese children's authors with Terry and those who write Portuguese books, children's books here in the United States, and I know there's one or two in Canada as well. And that would be kind of an important event, and an event that we should think about for the future.
Because you need something else to do.
Because I do need something else to do. Yes. So Angela,
rest in peace. She always said, if you want something done,
ask a busy person.
Be busy. And it does work.
Mm-hmm.
Angela, a little bit about, of course, you mentioned already about your books, but the same question I asked Terry, which is, how do you write for children? I mean, it might help that you do have a daughter, so you can connect, and you see what's going on in school. I don't have that, but how do you write for children? Did you have to do some research? You have to do a lot of children's book research, or was it something that were used to it because, as you said, you brought and when you said that Adrian brought some books from Portugal in order to teach Aurelia how to, a little bit of Portuguese, and you were learning as well, and you didn't know some of the words. One of the things is, and that is not the case with Terry, because Terry understands both worlds. Most of the children's writers in Portugal don't understand the Americas at all. I mean, it's just a total different alien, talk about aliens, an alien planet almost. And so did you feel that some of those books, that one of the reasons why you took to this project was because some of those books weren't culturally significant? That's my issue also with children's books that come from Portugal. Sometimes they're not culturally significant for kids in America, because not just they're not bilingual, they're not also, they're talking about a world that the kids have no concept what it is. I mean, Andrea would, because she was there almost every summer, but those who were born here and didn't go to Portugal, but maybe once every 7 or 8 years, it's a total foreign world. So tell me a little bit about what drove you to this and the language that you used and the experience.
Sure. So you hit on so many aspects that came into the writing of the books as we continued to publish more and more. So the first one, I guess having read a lot of children's books because we had a daughter, it made the writing of it a little less intimidating, right? I didn't feel like I needed to have a PhD in child psychology in order to write something that was appropriate, because, some children's books are quite sophisticated, other ones are quite simple. And so I think it became clear that there's room for there to be creativity, for it to be simple, for it to be whatever we wanted, right? So I think the first time, actually, I with the first book, Linda Menina, realized the importance of translation, because the first edition, there were a couple of grammatical errors in the Portuguese, and people pointed them out. And, and it's a very important thing to do, because if you're going to be using it as a learning tool, you want to be teaching the right word with the right accent, the right tense, all those kinds of things. And so that lesson meant that I wanted to work with folks like you, Denise, that actually did the official translation, right, and find the appropriate word. When we wrote the Barcelos Rooster book, it's for the most part been an oral tradition. And, there's websites that have a page on it, but I couldn't find anything written like a book, right, to pass down the story of the Barcelos Rooster, because we all have roosters in our house, but what's really the story? And there were different versions. And one of the versions was the stranger was going to be sentenced to death, right? And I had written that, and having my husband and other folks review the text, my husband's like, do you really want to say that he was sentenced to death in a children's book? It's a little severe, right? And so we softened it, and that he was, just found guilty, right? So in that context, we did soften the language a bit. But again, finding the right words, the right translations was challenging at times, right? And so, when you talked about the books that were out there just were not culturally significant, the thing that I found was, and the books that I found that were bilingual just seemed kind of off, if you will, just didn't seem that interesting to me, or it was just an American book translated into Portuguese, right? And so there was no intent. Books weren't written with the intent of being Portuguese. And I also thought, there's nothing that actually describes the Portuguese American experience. And so that's where the Festa book came from, because that book literally is my childhood growing up, going to the festas with my cousins and my family, right? We ran in and out of the dance circles. We, were in the parades. We were carrying flags, and we were dancing the folklore. I mean, we were doing it all. And so, instead of relying on the oral tradition part of it, what if we had books that actually talked about the different traditions and celebrations that we have in our community, and those were tools that parents could use to actually tell these stories, right? So the next book, I don't have an illustration here with me, but the next book that will be out before the end of the year is using the lyrics from Uma Casa Portuguesa, right? Because I feel like that's a song that a lot of us know, but do we really know the meaning of the words? And what's the picture that you paint in your mind when you're singing the song? And so I'm really excited about that one. And then, there's lots of other stories and traditions like, Rainha Santa Isabel, the story behind the festas and why we have the queens. It's a beautiful story that, again, it's kind of left to the oral tradition. So putting those in a print format that parents can use to not only teach the Portuguese, but also pass down the stories and the traditions of our culture, I think is really important. So that's kind of how things evolved for me. So I don't know if that answers your question,
Sure,
Denise, but that's absolutely the path that we've taken. Yeah,
indeed. And I think there is, just like Terry mentioned, and Andrea and Zach as well, I think there's ample territory out there to explore. Andrea's work, still in the kitchen. It's I just got, and I should get the villa probably tomorrow. It is I was fascinated because I think that everybody likes to eat and kids love to eat, and that's then Terry does that with Neda in a way, and so bringing in food, the landscape. I think there's lots that are needed from what you just mentioned, Angela, here from the United States aspect and the Portuguese American experience and the Portuguese Canadian experience. So I would say the Portuguese diaspora in North America, because we're very, very similar in a lot of ways. And then in Portugal, and in Terry's case in the islands, but he's a one-man show all over the Portuguese world. In Portugal itself, the need to bring Portugal to the children, today's Portugal, and that's exactly what he does with Neda nos Açores in the Azores. And so to bring today's Portugal and to bring all and to bridge all of these connections, there really does and I would actually think that it's important for us to develop, and PBBI at Fresno State can put forth, like I need also something else, as Angela said, but I think it'd be great to develop a workshop for Portuguese language teachers who teach at our wonderful community schools on using this children's literature that is being done in Portugal, bilingual, and that is being done here also to teach the culture, the traditions, and bits of the language as well. Terry, you had a comment.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was so excited. Last week, I got pictures from Fogo Island Academy, which is in the east coast of Canada. No connection whatsoever in terms of Portuguese, no teacher, no students, nothing like that. But they got the book, Neda in the Azores, and it was the French classes, grade 8 and grade 9, that were using, they've added, and the teachers were using it because it was in English and in Portuguese, so the kids would translate in class to French. And I thought that was amazing. I was like, wow, and they sent pictures of the classes doing that with the book. I was so excited. I'm like, oh, I have to reach all these other schools now and mention this, maybe
Sure.
I'll sell 50 books in Canada.
No, indeed, and it's a children's. I use children's books even when I taught high school, because the language was simple that we could understand. Remember, my students were mostly not Portuguese, and those were Portuguese. They knew cala a boca e fecha a porta, and that was it. And so call me Calit. And that was actually the name of a cookbook that our Portuguese club did, with call me Calit, because the kids, that's one that they always heard grandma say, call me Calit. And so the idea that with children's books, they could understand when they were totally in Portuguese, and then they could recreate, they would work on things like to recreate the ending, which teenagers would also find interesting ways to recreate an ending of a book, but that is there's a lot of ideas that can be done with children's books. So taking that, and because we are limited on time, and I know that all of you are busy, we talked a little bit about future projects, but let's talk a little bit more about that. And so I'll start with Andrea again. So we have two books. First of all, how have they been received? I'm sure good. What can we do in the Portuguese American community, Andrea, to promote Stella, whether she's in the kitchen or in the villa, or maybe she's in the playa, or wherever she's going to be next. And hopefully it's only 2 of maybe, I don't know, maybe 12 or 15. First of all, what can we do in the Portuguese American community to promote it? Because authors need to sell their books. And second of all, how do you see this project going forward?
Yeah, definitely. So promotion, honestly, what I've seen is word of mouth is great, because I think we trust each other and we trust our friends and family to tell us, we love this, or this helped us so much, and check this out. I think it becomes definitely a marketing challenge online. There's so many people online, which is such a huge opportunity, but you could get lost in it. So I'd say definitely word of mouth, family and friends is great. Anytime that's happened, I see a lot of excitement around it, and it's been great experiences with that. I think with the project itself, I would love for Stella to go everywhere. I would love, like you said, for it to be 12 or 15 books. I think right now the project is continuing. I am working on the 3rd one, and it's really going to try to keep being laced with memories, but also experiences that kids have, whether it be an everyday experience or it is a trip to the villa or to the aldea, which is a little bit more specific. So I would love to keep carrying the characters forward. So it's a recognizable series.
Indeed, and congratulations, well done. And I enjoyed the different concept of the poetry, of the verses with the Portuguese words, because again, with Portuguese language teachers, you can do a lot with those words. You can create a sentence with the word pão and so there's lots of different creative things that can be done. Zach, what are we looking for? You mentioned already a little bit that you're working on a 2nd book. Tell us a little bit about that, and tell us how we can work together to promote the one, of course, that is already out, Bullfights with Vovo. But so how can we promote? How can we work this a little bit more? And how can we? And what's the future for? Where's Vovo going to take you next?
So right now I'm currently working on a book called Tarts with Va. And what we're going into now is we're going into more of educating Portuguese youth on different Portuguese pastries. I plan on having this be a kind of like a cooking baking series of just pretty much using my niece and my aunt as inspiration, and going through the story of how you, not only is it going to be teaching about how to cook these desserts, there's going to be step-by-step steps with each page, but it's also going to be showing the connection and the bond that people can have by using food. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that some of people, if you look deep in your memory bank of times with grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, you can have a lot of great memories. It was just you cooking with them. So we're hoping to utilize that and educate Portuguese youth on the different baked goods that are from Portugal, as well as teaching them how to make them. So hopefully mom or dad will want to, as after they're done reading it, they'll want to go to the instructions in the back of the book and actually make it themselves with their child or grandchild. And we're hoping to go into that. And one of the biggest things that we can see about promoting all of our books with the Portuguese community is having more things like this, where we're able to talk to each other, share what we're doing, maybe even having a Portuguese book festival where you have kids' books, adult books, all intermingling with the Portuguese community, so that members can come out and learn about what we're all doing. And just how it was mentioned earlier, just word of mouth is a great way of getting our books out. It helps out a lot when someone says something about it or shares it. The simple 1-2 minute Facebook post or Instagram post, it really does a lot by just simply sharing.
Thank you, Zach. And we'll go to Angela, because Angela does need to leave pretty shortly. And I think we lost everybody's back. So Angela, your final thoughts on this?
Yeah,
the same question, promoting.
Sure. I would reiterate what both Zach and Andrea have said, that word of mouth really helps. It's one of those things where, think about, do you have a young person in your life? Makes a great gift, whether it's for Christmas or Valentine's Day or a birthday or anything, if you know of a local school, maybe consider donating a book to the local school, right? And it doesn't have to be a Portuguese school. It doesn't have to be a Portuguese community school. It could be your own local school library. I've donated a set of my books to our daughter's school. It's a Catholic school. It's not a Portuguese school, but they have a kindergarten, and they teach Spanish there. So why should they not, have some Portuguese books there too? So I think there's a lot of ways that people can help spread the word and spread awareness of the books. But yeah, word of mouth, social media, and taking a picture of your child or your niece or nephew reading the book, and hey, they really love this book, you guys should check it out, and posting the link there as well. That would be great.
Indeed, you just gave me a couple of ideas for my spare
That's
time.
what I'm here for.
As you said, we'll get to, that's our next hour in November when we do again a Children's Book Week. We will have children reading their books and promoting it through different online venues of your books, Andrea's, Zach's, Terry's, and yours. And also the other thing is that. And here's a challenge. It is, World Portuguese Language Day. So here's a challenge to our Portuguese American organizations. Lots of them have lots of money. They invest lots of money in things like, bringing someone from Portugal to sing. Usually, major singer can cost anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000. Why not invest maybe $150 and buy 10 books and donate it to the local library? So here's a challenge to all the Portuguese organizations throughout the United States and Canada. Come on, buy, a few books from each one of these authors and donate them to the library in your city and in your county. That's one way to promote. If we had, just 25 organizations, across North American continent and the US and Canada do that, each buying, 5 or 6 books from each one of the authors here. It would make a difference to the author. It would make a difference of getting the word out. So a nice challenge that I'll follow up with an email to the organizations I know. And Terry, your last thoughts also on this. We lost you there for a little bit, but the same idea. How could we promote? How do we move forward? How do we interconnect all of you guys who write also children's books?
Just real quick, unfortunately, I have to jump. I'm really, really sorry, but this has been great. Thank you so much, Denise, for coordinating it. And we'll be collaborating, everybody here.
Thank you. And Terry will forgive you for leaving.
Bye, Angela.
Bye.
Thank you, Angela.
Sorry, I popped out because my computer ran out of battery. I thought it was plugged in, but it wasn't. I had it on the wrong hole. It happens all the time. It takes more to promote than to create. That's what I always keep telling our partners, our artists, because with Neda, it came out during a pandemic. I presented just a couple of months before. So my big tour across Portugal was basically canceled. And even though it's one of the few books that is at Boba bookshop in Lisbon, which is, if you haven't been, when you come to Portugal, to Lisbon, you have to go. It's the most amazing little bookshop, just about illustrated books and books for the kids and all of us. It's fantastic. When I go there, I spend, a lot of money. And so what I did was, because I could travel between the islands, I invested a lot of time and effort, and I went to visit all the islands. The book was in every island, if there wasn't a library or a papelaria, a shop that sells all the tools for the kids in school, I would find, a craft store that would accept books or something like that, because my goal was that to have it available on all the islands. And because we were during pandemic, I used the social media to promote it like mad, and it did reach, every little corner of the Azores. And because, I do these type of presentations in Portuguese and English, sometimes I even try it in other languages. It's always about talking. You always have to be talking about your book, about your work, presenting it somehow. And even though here we do small runs, 350 to 1,000 books, Neda is going now with 2,000 books, which is like a major success in Azores with 2,000 books, but which of course in the States is nothing. But hey, that's how you have to go. And hopefully now Neda is now in Spanish, being distributed in South America, which is fantastic. And hopefully before Christmas will also be in Japanese, because the Asian market really loved this style of animation, of illustration, and that's the way to pass on the word to other cultures to learn about us. So I'm really excited about this project, and we're trying to do the same thing with other authors and illustrators and their stories, try to reach new markets, because of course we know in the Azores it's a small market, and you really have to promote to be able to go to all the houses as much as possible, because here you still go to houses with kids that there's no books unless they're going to school, and they have the school book in their backpack, and that's basically it. There still exist a lot of those houses here. We started a program, sorry Denise, I'm taking a long time. We started a program that is called Todas as crianças têm direito a livro. Every kid has the right to a book, and we're incentivizing organizations, town halls, to buy boxes of books and do events where all the kids that and the parents that invest to go to that event get the book for free. And that way you take away the economic aspect of it. You need the investment of these young people, and especially their parents, because most of them are my age or younger, to invest and take their kids to an event that is dedicated to kids, and not just the festa for favas e vinho, right?
Indeed.
So that's
Indeed.
what we have to do to keep promoting, and I hope we can connect, outside of the online somewhere, be it in the States or be it in Portugal. It's very important to have these connections.
Indeed, indeed. And that's a good way to end it. Thank you so much, Terry. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Zachery. And of course, thanks to Angela. Thanks to all of you who joined us on behalf of the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute at Fresno State. We'd love to host you here at Fresno State if we ever have that opportunity. And we'll work on with, as Terry said, it's important to get different partners and in business, in government. And yes, governments do have responsibilities for these things in order to get more kids, on both sides of the Atlantic, because unfortunately, in the communities, there are quite a few families, too many, in my perspective, that kids don't have books as well. And so it's something that, we brought from there. And not too long ago, not too well on the point, but just a couple of days ago, there was a program on the Portuguese television that mentioned exactly that I think Portugal was one of the leading, unfortunately, countries in Europe where people, were like 59% of the people had never read a book in the last year, any book. And so we need to get that changed around in the communities as well. And really, it does start with children's literature. It does start young, and we cannot have kids reading a novel by Saramago. We have to have kids reading what all three of you and Angela have been creating now for a few years. Again, thank you all on behalf of the Portuguese Beyond Borders Institute, on behalf of PALCUS. Thank you for joining us. Happy World Portuguese Language Day, Dia Mundial de Língua Portuguesa. Até sempre. Muito obrigado a todos. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
So much.
Obrigado.